Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma sarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So we have already had two discussions on Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, that is the way of knowledge. I think we have had three. Today is the fourth one. Okay. So here Swamiji describes the evolution of the concept of God, and he also gives other very important lessons in life for us. So we will see all that. But here we have to remember that Swamiji is focusing, today's discussion, he is focusing more on the psychological processes involved when a person tries to think of God. So he's not going into so much detail that first he thinks of this type of God, next this type of, he does not go into so much detail, but he's taking a subjective viewpoint that when we are trying to think of God, right from the ancient times, how we are slowly progressing inside. This we have to understand. So, if we have to examine the various sorts of worship all over the world, we will see that the rudest of mankind, the most gross form, they were worshipping ghosts, demons, and of course spirits of their forefathers also. In many places there is serpent worship of tribal gods. First we have to understand, why do human beings do this? What is the reason for worshipping some other being? Because we feel that in some unknown way these beings are greater than us, more powerful. So they therefore seek to propitiate these beings in order to prevent harm. People are afraid of powerful people in the world. So similarly, these beings are supposed to be more powerful. So one thing is, people are afraid of them. That, if Indra, God, becomes angry, he will shower all this today what we are having. So please him. Another reason is, since they are more powerful, to get something from them. That is the two reasons where people worship those who are in power. So first is they are afraid of them. Second is they want to win favor from these superior beings. They want to get gifts, etc. from God. So in the Vedas, we trace the endeavor of the ancient people to find God. In their search for God, people came upon different strata, one by one levels. Humans are progressing. Starting with ancestor worship. Then in Vedas we find the worship of Agni, fire god, Indra, the god of thunder, Varuna, the god of wind. So the idea of God we find growing. Now we will just skip over ancestor worship of ghosts and demons, etc. Nothing much to discuss about that. First, when we discuss the evolution of God now, we have to understand one thing. That evolution of the concept of God is being discussed, not the evolution of God. Because God doesn't evolve. There is no change in God. God is always the same. He is called ever free, ever blissful, ever pure, all pervading. So He cannot change. So there is no evolution of God. What is evolving is our idea of God. Means human beings are evolving, not God. So, leaving aside worship of ghosts and demons and ancestor worship and all, the rudimentary concept in the Vedas, where we really start getting some idea of God as we know now, is that of the Devas. Deva. Deva and Ishvara, they are separate terms in Vedanta. We should not mix them up. English problem is there is no other word. So we say God with a small g, God with a capital G. But in Vedanta, these two terms are clearly defined. You cannot mix them up because they are completely two different concepts. So first is the Deva. Deva means the bright ones. Jyoti, Div Dhatu. So these Devas are not persons. They are positions. Like the Prime Minister of Canada is not a person. Same person will not be Prime Minister all the time. It is just a position. Different person will come and accept the position. So here when we say Indra, Agni, Varuna, etc., they are not particular persons, but they are just posts. Like the post of the President, Prime Minister, etc. So they preside over certain elements. Indra is presiding over clouds and thunder, Agni is presiding over fire, like that. So these positions, when one person finishes with that, another person will become Indra. Then another person will become Agni. Because these positions are temporary. Like the Prime Minister will go one day, another Prime Minister will come, like that. So who attains these positions of the Devas? Like who attains the position of Indra? Who attains the position of Agni? It is the human beings who attain. So what happens? Human beings do some good work. They give some money in charity, maybe they give some food to the poor, they help someone. But very few can do these works without asking anything in return. People do, but they want something in return. So I give to the poor, O God, but take me to heaven. So what happens to them? If they do good works, but they want the result, what happens to them? Those jivas go out of the body at the time of death, and there is a sphere called lunar sphere. You can say Chandraloka. So they go there and they have a very good time. They have lots of happiness, etc. It is just like putting some bank balance and enjoying that. So till the effects of the good work are there, they stay there. They have a nice time. But when it is exhausted, they are again born as human beings. So in the lunar sphere, the jiva becomes what is called a deva. In Christianity and Muslim religion, it is called angel. One angel came and told this, one angel came and told that. So they are similar to our devas. So these gods are names of certain positions. Thousands of men may have that position today or tomorrow. So this is the This is how the positions are filled. Just as the kings change here, so do the devas change in heaven. Because he comes down, another person who has done good works, again he will become a deva, like that. So these gods have more power than ordinary human beings, and they can help us. They are very powerful. Suppose one Indra is controlling all rain, etc. So people worship when they want rain in times of drought. So he will become pleased and give them rain. That's why gifts are given to gods. But they are also subject to death. They will again die, become human beings. Then what they do when they become human beings, it depends their future upon that. So on all level of existence, there are various heavens. If you read the Hindu description, there are various strata of heaven, Bhur, Bhuva, Swa, etc. All these lokas are there, and there are various hells also. So in all the heavens, there is death, except in one heaven. That is called the Brahma Loka. That is the highest heaven, from where people get liberated. There is no birth and death. So universe has many spheres. The earth is the world sphere in which the moon, suns and stars are there. Beyond that there is the solar sphere. Beyond that there is a lunar sphere. Beyond that there is a sphere which is called sphere of lightning, electric sphere. So when the jiva goes there, there comes, when he dies, there comes another person to receive that jiva, because he doesn't know where to go. So someone comes, he takes us to various planes, wherever we may be fit to be. So the highest of these planes is called Brahma Loka. There the jiva does not die once he goes there. But only the highest human beings, those who have attained love of God, who have become perfectly unselfish, perfectly purified, who have given up all desires, who do not want anything other than God, they go to Brahma Loka. Ordinary people like us cannot go. So these people are aspiring after God, but in one life they may not have attained Him, but they have come very close. So they go to Brahma Loka. Anyway, the thing to note is that these devas are only powerful beings. That is all. They will again die, they will again become human beings. So many of us are horrified when reading the old scriptures, whether of the Greeks, the Hebrew, the Persian, etc. We find that these devas, the ancient gods, did some things which to us seem very repulsive. Some deva may have drunk wine, etc. Some deva may have killed someone else. So we become very surprised. What kind of deva is this? That is doing all these sorts of things. But when we read these books, we entirely forget that we are persons of the 19th century. And these gods this concept of God were made by persons living thousands of years ago. So we forget that the people who worship these gods, they did not find these gods strange thousands of years ago. They found nothing to frighten them, because their concept of God was very much like them. But our concept is very different. So we find very strange things, that how can a God become so cruel, etc. This is something to remember. So when we think that what kind of God these people imagined, the barbarians, so early, they did not know anything. So we may think that what type of people they may have been. They must have been absolute brutes. That their gods are drinking and doing all sorts of violence, etc. But we should not think that way. That is one point. I told you that Swamiji gives many pointers here. And this is very important for the practical life also, what we will see now. Here he sees we should not think in this way. Why? Because in evaluating others, the mistake we do is we always judge others by our own ideals. We have got some ideal in life. So we judge others by our ideal. But that should not be done. Everyone must be evaluated according to his own ideal and not according to someone else's ideal. So when we are dealing with others, all the cause of all misunderstanding we have, we constantly make this mistake. What? That my ideal is this, and according to that, my motive in doing something is this, and I evaluate others thinking that they also have the same motive. So under certain circumstances, I might do a certain thing, and when I see another person not doing that very thing, we think that this person does not know anything. When a person does what we do, we think it is okay. But we don't know what circumstances govern that person's actions. The cause by which he is acting may be completely different. His motive for doing the same thing may be completely different. So first of all, never try to judge anybody, but if you have to evaluate a person, because we have to deal with persons, so we have to always remember that try to evaluate him by his own ideal, not by your ideal. That will lead to better understanding and better relations. So here also, in judging these ancient religions where the gods did all these things, we must not take the standpoint to which we incline, but we must put ourselves in those early times. That if we had lived 10,000 years ago, what would have been our state? Our concept of God, what would that have been? This is the thing. So, in the Old Testament, we find that the God is Jehovah. Jehovah is the God of Bible. He is supposed to be the creator of all things. The prophets in the Bible, Abraham and Moses, they worshipped him, and Jesus also worshipped him. But if we read the Old Testament, we'll become frightened, because this Jehovah does many cruel things. But why should we be frightened? Swamiji says, what right we have to assume that the Jehovah of the ancient Jews must represent the conventional idea of God of the present day? To think that is silly. The evolution of the concept of God changes. At the same time, we must not forget that there may come men after us, after 2000 years, they will laugh at our ideas of God, at our ideas of religion. Hmm. Yet, through all these conceptions runs the thread of unity. There is some unity in how persons thought 5000 years ago, how they think now, how they will think later. And the purpose of Vedanta is to discover this thread of unity. That is why in the Gita, Sri Krishna says, I am the thread that runs through all these various ideas. Each of one is like a pearl. Like a pearl necklace, diamond necklace, each pearl is different. But how are they connected? They are connected through one thread. So God is the one thread which connects all these ideas. And Vedanta establishes this connecting thread. However disgusting may seem the ideas of early man when judged according to the conceptions of today, we should not forget that those ideas in the setting of those times were harmonious. They were not hideous. But problem is, we try to take them out of their settings and apply them to our present circumstances. Then it seems silly. So many things in other countries, people live in different ways. So you just cannot simply bring out one idea and put it where you are and think that how silly it is. Like in India, people use coal for cooking, etc. So in times of these, we may laugh at that, but in times of these power failure, we know that that also has its advantages. But you cannot just bring that coal and light it in a wooden house here. Everything will be burned down. So we will say that the idea of having coal to light a fire is silly. It is not silly there. It is silly here. So same thing is happening here. We take an idea 5000 years ago and apply just a portion of that to our times. Naturally, it will seem out of place. But when we evaluate them, we have to first imagine what the world was like in those times. Then it won't seem wrong in any way. So, what is the mistake we do? Swamiji, what we have discussed, he puts in a concise way. The mistake we do is recognize the evolution of the worshippers, but we do not acknowledge the evolution of the worshipped. So we think that the being who is worshipped, God, that idea will remain throughout, same through centuries, while human being is evolving. That cannot be, because the idea of God depends on our evolution. So humans are advancing, and their ideas of God also is advancing. So you and I represent ideas. As ideas, we are growing. This conception of God is also ideas. They also represent ideas. So those ideas also grow. God does not grow. He cannot grow. He is unchangeable. In the same way that the real man does not grow. Real man is the soul. But the apparent man advances. And his idea of God also advances. That is the thing. This you have to understand. Otherwise, this whole thing will be a big confusion. So, behind all these ideas is the real God who never changes, who is ever pure, who is immutable. But the manifestation of God through our minds is always changing. And slowly, in our minds, the reality is revealed more and more. As the reality is revealed, we call it progress. The more it is hidden, we call it retrogression. So we say that as we grow, the gods grow. In that point, in that view, it is said. So, from the ordinary point of view, just as we evolve, so the gods reveal themselves more and more. This is the thing. Now we have to understand the mental state of the ancient primitive man. What was that state? To him, the world did not appear incongruous. Circumstances were not inharmonious for him. There was no clash of opinions. There was no conflict between good and evil. In ancient man, there was merely a feeling in his own heart, something which said yes, something which said no. That is all. So, the primitive man was a man of impulse. He did what occurred to him. And what occurred in his mind, he tried to get through his muscles. If a person has something he wants, he will go give a big bashing on the head. Take that. There was no sense of right and wrong. I want this, I will take it. Finished. So there was no conflict. He never stopped to judge. And he did not see any reason why he should stop this impulse. Why he should not give him a bashing. I want it, I will take it. So his God, what will it be like? His God will also be like that. Creatures of impulse. So Indra will come, he will kill all the demons. Jehovah is pleased with one person and displeased with another. So he sends that person to hell. So the habit of inquiry had not even arisen. So whatever that ancient man did, he regarded as right, because there was no sense of right and wrong. So their devas were also like that. They did many wicked things. Again and again, Indra and gods committed very wicked things. But the worshippers of Indra in those times, they did not find anything wrong with that, because they were doing the same things. So here also, this is not only that day. In today's world also, we will see many gangsters, you will see they are wearing the cross. Then in Holy Mother's life, there is the incident. She was crossing after dark, she was crossing a big field. Tilo Vilo it was called. So there, dacoits were there. They used to kill anybody, rob them. Now, those dacoits used to start on their killing, etc. After doing what? After worshipping Kali. Their temple is there where they worship Kali. So you will think these fellows, they are worshipping God and they are doing such things. But to them, Kali is not what Kali is to us. To them, Kali is also like that. She is cutting the head of everyone she likes, anyone she likes. So we cannot evaluate those persons on comparing them with our mental states. No. they think in a particular way. So therefore, their gods will also think in that particular way. Because their idea of God will depend on their evolution. Simple as that. So primitive times there was no problem. When there was no question of right and wrong. Do what you like. No police to arrest you, nobody to tell you anything, no problem. But slowly, when man evolved, the question came of ethics arose. Ethics, the science of what is good and what is bad. So, ethics means there arose a certain sense in human beings. You can call it ethics or religion or whatever you like. Call it the voice of God or past education or whatever else. But what happened when that voice arose? When that voice arose, there was the checking power. Something checked him that don't do certain kind of things. First, suppose he wanted to bash another person on the head. So maybe the impulse arose. No. Suppose a stronger person than you would bash you on your head. How would you like that? Then he thought, no, I would not like that. So why should I do the same thing to someone else? I'm just giving an example. So there is one impulse in our mind which says do. In ancient times, there was nothing to check impulse. That's impulse. You like, do. But another voice arose slowly. That voice says, no, don't do this. Doing this is not right. You may want that, but that is not right. So there is one set of ideas in our mind which is always struggling to get outside the channel of the senses. And behind that, there is another idea, a small voice, which says, no, don't go that way. So these two impulses are called pravritti and nivritti. That is a different topic we will discuss later. So when this do not arises, no, don't do anything you like, it is not correct. Religion begins with this do not. Spirituality begins with this do not. If this do not is not there, man is just a barbarian, he is just animal. So do not represents self-control. No, this impulse is not correct. Control yourself. Either they may be fear or they may be just sense of good and bad. Youngsters who have no sense, they do all sorts of things. They do some shoplifting, they don't have education. But when a person grows older, even if there is no fear, he may get away with it, he knows. But he will not take something which does not belong to him. Why? The sense of do not has come. Don't do this because it is not correct. So when man evolved, this do not came, causing men's ideas to grow. A little love came into his heart. It was very small indeed. And Swamiji says even now it is not much greater because it takes time. Because very true, very good persons, truly spiritual persons, they are always few in the world. So we cannot say that this idea of love has grown a lot. But anyway, that is the word. So little love arose. What happened first? In first, man only thought of himself. Then little love arose. So he first began to think of his whole tribe. He said, no, if I get something, I should share at least with my people, if not with others. So his concept of God also changed. His God became a tribal God, protector of not only me, but protector of the whole tribe. And sometimes the members of the tribe would think themselves as descendants of that God. Hmm. Just as various clans in different nations think they are the common descendants of the man who was the founder of the clan. So in Indian scriptures we read Suryavanshi, Chandravanshi, means descendants of the sun, descendants of the moon. You cannot descend from the sun. So what happened was their tribe was worshipping the sun for many centuries as a god. And slowly the concept evolved that we have descended from the sun. So they are solar dynasties, lunar dynasties. That is the thing. So when these tribal ideas of God began to grow with a little love arising in our hearts, what happened? There was a slight sense of duty also towards each other, a little social organization. Then naturally the idea arose, oh, if everybody does whatever he likes, then what will happen? We will be constantly fighting. Is it not? So human beings thought, no, if we have to live together, we have to forbear. It will not do if we only think of ourselves. We have to check our impulses. We have to restrain ourselves. So, without forbearance, there can be no social life at all. If everybody does whatever he likes, society will go to pieces. So, the idea of restraint was, the importance of that idea was recognized. So Swamiji says, very important point here, after saying all this, the whole social fabric is based upon the idea of restraint. And we all know that the man or woman who has not learnt the great lesson of bearing and forbearing, they lead a most miserable life. They say, I won't adjust with anybody, the whole world has to adjust with me. They can never be happy. So, when these ideas of religion claim a glimpse of something higher, more ethical, dawned upon the intellect of mankind. Now he saw that the old gods, boisterous, fighting, drinking, meat-eating gods, who delighted in the smell of burning flesh and liquor, now they saw that no, this idea of God will not do. In Indian scriptures also we find sometimes Indra drank so much that he fell down on the ground. So, with the evolution of man, they began to think these gods will not be tolerated. What type of gods are they who are doing all these things? Because man started to inquire about his motives. Why am I doing this? Selfishness, unselfishness, all these concepts arose. So naturally, these ideas he related to God also. Why does Indra drink so much? He should not. Those ideas arose. So naturally, they thought, no, these gods will not do. We have to bring in better gods. So then what happened? The God to be worshipped was no more just a powerful person. He also had to be an ethical person. He has to love mankind. He has to do good to mankind. and he can't go on quarreling and fighting and drinking. So they increased God's ethical significance and, of course, also increased the power of God slowly. Slowly, God became the most ethical being in the whole universe and also the most powerful. This is the thing. So, slowly these ideas developed, and those who were not so tolerant, they started blaming, they started condemning the old ideas. They thought, what type of people were there who thought all these rotten ideas, God is killing, God is drinking. But these ideas are still there in our scriptures. If these ideas were so bad, then why hasn't the saints and sages, why have they not removed them? Why in the Vedas we still find Indra drinking so much, suppose, for example? Because the saints and sages knew much better than us. They had great sympathy and they had great understanding. So they understood the idea that we must go deeper into the cause. Just simply don't say anything is bad just because you think it bad today. All the great teachers came into the world, they declared that they have not come to destroy anything. They have come to fulfill. Tend to talk outside. So, if we had our way, we would have done fanatical reforms, etc., etc. But Swamiji says, in the history of the world, if we see, all the fanatical reforms, if we see, like the abolition of slavery in America and the French Revolution, etc., they have not had good results. In the end, they have defeated their own aim. After abolition of slavery, suddenly the slaves were in a very bad position. So you cannot just wipe out something. Each stage has had a part to play in the growth of man. Like in Swami Vivekananda's life, we find this happening. Swami Vivekananda had gone to one place, and naturally wherever he went, people began to like him, he became popular. So there was one, this tantric in that place. So previously, many people used to go to that tantric, but when Swami Vivekananda went there, people left going to him, they went to Swamiji. So he became very jealous. And he cursed Swamiji. He wanted him to go, no? So he cursed him that within this and this day, you will become ill and you will have to leave. And Swamiji became ill and he had to leave. So he came to Calcutta, he went to Holy Mother, he complained, what happened to Thakur? What happened to Sri Ramakrishna? That tantric, a little power he has, and he cursed me and I had to suffer. So what happened to Sri Ramakrishna's power? He is asking Holy Mother. So Holy Mother said this very thing, that God, like Sri Ramakrishna, she said, they don't come to destroy, they come to fulfill. This means what? Suppose Sri Ramakrishna had done something and that power of that tantric had failed. So what would he have been doing? That is also Vidya. He would have been destroying the effect of that Vidya, destroying that Vidya. That he cannot do. So God comes to fulfill, never to destroy anything. That is also Vidya that will be effective. It doesn't matter whether it is on Swami Vivekananda or any other human being. These are very important points. So these sages knew, they had great love, they knew how each idea is important in the evolution of humankind, and all we can learn from these old ideas also. We cannot have any idea of the infinite power of love in the hearts of these great saints and sages. They looked upon the inhabitants of the world as their own children. So Swamiji says they were the real fathers, the real gods, filled with infinite sympathy and infinite patience for everyone. They knew how human society should grow. How? Patiently, slowly, surely. So they were also patient, and they guided human beings slowly but surely. They did not criticize or frighten people, but gently and kindly they led them upwards, one step at a time. And such people were the sages of the Upanishads. They knew very well that the old ideas of God were not reconcilable with the advanced ethical ideas of the modern times. But at the same time, they understood that those who wanted to completely cut all those ideas off, what are they doing? They are cutting the thread of that necklace. Beginning we saw, no? That God is the thread which is running through the various ideas. He is unifying everything. So those people who are denouncing the earlier ideas, they are, as it were, cutting that thread. And that should not be done. So if you cut that thread, then where will the pearls be then? They have no place to stand. So those who denounce those ideas, think them to be worthless, the old ideas, what they are wanting to do, they are as if wanting to build a society in the air. There is no background, no foundation, and that society will fall. It will fail. So all these are necessary. Because Swami Vivekananda says, what we do when we grow, when a society grows, we don't build anything new. We simply change places. We only change the position of things. The seed grows into the tree patiently and gently. It transforms itself. So he says we must direct our energies towards the truth and fulfill the truth that exists. Not try to make new truths. There cannot be any new truth. Thus, he says, instead of denouncing those old ideas of God as unfit for modern times, the ancient sages began to seek out the reality which was in those ideas also. And the result was the Vedanta philosophy. And out of all those earlier gods came the one God, the ruler of the universe. Then first he was imagined as a person. Then that concept was also given up. The sages went higher and higher till they found the highest concept. What was that? complete oneness of the whole universe. That is the highest, which is called Advaita. So in Vedanta we see that this evolution of concept of God has been broadly conceived on three levels. First is dualism, qualified dualism, and lastly non-dualism. So dualism will say God is sitting somewhere in the cloud, he is completely different, he makes somebody good, he makes somebody bad. Slowly mankind thought, no, this cannot be the final answer. Then they thought that God, we are a part of God, we are not completely separate. Like the sparks are the part of fire. Then they found that no, this is also not enough. And finally they came to the Advaita plane. So the thing here to learn is final. Just as a race advances, so individuals also have to advance. The steps which the human race has taken to reach the highest pinnacles of religious thought, each of us will have to take. Only as a whole, the human race took millions of years to go from one step to another. But individuals can do it much faster according to their efforts. So we may talk of Advaita right now, but we have not yet reached the stage. Till we are identified with the body, we can have no concept of anything but dualism. But we have to progress from there. Reading about Advaita, we should not think that we have progressed to Advaita. No, not at all. What we experience is our plane of existence. Simply telling we are one with Brahman will not make us one. We think we are the bodies. So advancing here means actually realizing. Actual realization will lead to real advancement, not just reading books. So slowly, these, as human beings evolved, their idea of God also evolves and it continues to evolve. In every age, there are very few human beings who have advanced to the highest stage. They have realized actually the oneness of everybody, all the whole universe. They have reached the stage of non-dualism. But there are others who are in a lower state. So this process of evolution of the concept of God in a human mind is a continuous one. We are also advancing. We also have to advance. And the scriptures are there luckily now for us, because those who had gone to the highest stage, they have written down, they have told us, this is your goal. So at least we are not in that prehistoric age when human beings did not even know what is he seeking for. But now we know this is our final goal. And all these scriptures are there to guide our lives in an ethical way. Our concepts of God will keep on changing as we become better and better human beings. But we should always remember that all those earlier concepts of God are what have led us to this. Those are the stairs. You cannot jump to the highest stair at once. Without those lower levels, we could not have advanced this far. So they had their own place. So we must not denounce anything. We must accept all these ideas. And from where we are, We have to go step by step and ultimately reach the final goal. So, just a summing up of the main ideas discussed today. First thing, God does not evolve. God cannot evolve. But human beings evolve. So, as human beings evolve, the evolution of the concept of God denotes what? The evolution of human minds. Earlier times, primitive man was a man of impulse, so were his gods. As the idea that we form of God is our creation of our minds. So naturally, upon the state of our mind will depend those ideas of God. Another thing which we have seen, we should always evaluate others by their own ideals, not by our ideal. Third thing we have seen that rise of ethical ideas marks the beginning of religion. Without ethics, without self-control, there is no question of religion or spirituality. That is why he says such an important thing, Swamiji, the whole social fabric is based upon ethics. The idea of restraint, the idea of bearing and forbearing. Why do families break up? To come down to a lower level. Country, society, then the smallest unit is a family. Why do they break up? This is one reason, most important reason. We will not cooperate. I will not cooperate. I will not forbear. I will not try to see others' viewpoint. What will happen? And lastly, the impersonal absolute is the highest conception of God. There we reach perfect unity. And when perfect unity is reached, there cannot be any growth because the goal has been reached. And to realize this goal is God realization, knowledge of Brahman, liberation, mukti, whatever you call it. And that is our aim. So we all have to start from where we are, progress, making the laws of spirituality, the laws of our own lives, means being governed by those laws, higher laws. Otherwise, we will not progress. We have to live according to those laws. And as we evolve, we will go higher and higher, and ultimately, we will stand face to face with the reality, as it were. Then we won't have to imagine something because it will be a matter of direct perception. And that direct perception is freedom, supreme goal of human life. So let's stop here. Om Shanti Shanti.